Never be afraid to walk away from a real estate deal at any point. Yesterday, I did a video on how not to go broke with real estate. And right after I posted it, I was reminded of a rule a mentor of mine once told me, is never be afraid to walk away from a deal. Now with this, he was referencing the inspection period, and it's better to lose your deposit on a deal than to own a bad deal. So today I'm going to go over that and also add in my own advice of not being afraid to sell. To quote the adopted Georgian, Kenny Rogers, you got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when it's sitting on the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing is done. Also, to quote mine and probably your kindergarten teacher, don't count your chickens before they hatch, something like that. So let's start with the before you buy. That seems logical, right? There are a few main categories of issues you can have with real estate. It's going to be your land, the structure, the title, and your financing. These are your primary sources of risk. And to a lesser extent, it's history. Finding out all the information you really want to know about a property before due diligence done rarely happens. You're almost always going to still have some questions left. There is almost always something you want to know more about, and you need to be prepared for this before you even make an offer. Sometimes these answers will come before closing. Sometimes they'll be very small. Sometimes they'll be major. Some will be issues at all, and some will never be answered. So what am I saying? You need to be aware of this risk of just buying real estate in general. And the risk level changes throughout the process of, due diligence period, being under contract, and then actual ownership of the property. When it comes down to the key variables of an offer, they kind of line up with these risk stages. You have your inspection period, your deposit amount, and the purchase price. And covering all those are contingencies such as financing and also the title in there is for standard in most contracts. During the inspection period, your only real risk is your deposit and the amount of time you spend on it. Once your due diligence is over, this is when your deposit is now at risk. And this is the stage that my mentor was referencing. You need to prepare yourself for this stage before you even get here. And do not make a deposit that you cannot stomach losing. Because losing your deposit on a deal can be far better than actually owning that deal. Now we're going to go on to the advice I learned the hard way. Having built houses and as a general contractor, I can say that no house is perfect. They all have imperfections, many of them. Likewise, there is no perfect land, title, or financing. They all have potential issues. For the most part, these are minor. And at a certain point when they start accumulating numbers, they're going to get a critical mass and become a snowball on their own and create other major problems, and also the problems you see are actually just symptoms of another problem. So when you're discovering all these issues, think about them together, how they interact with each other, and what story are they telling. And this is especially true if you're talking about properties with major issues or lots of owners or potential title issues. And if these issues keep growing and growing and growing, you might want to cut your losses. So to cite my personal story, I did major renovations. I'm a general contractor, and I found a property that was condemned at a very good deal. And I, assumed that the house was condemned because it had a hole in the roof, it had mold and squatters, and windows were open. And that the multiple previous owners just didn't see the vision for it, or they just didn't want to do the work to fix it up. So I bought it, secured it, cleaned it up, got the squatters out, got a survey for it, got some new plans, and I went to go get permits. I kept on getting denied for multiple reasons. I was being asked weird questions, and there's things that just seemed odd that the city was asking me. It's primarily about the land itself. And it took over a year to realize that my diagnosis of the problem was incorrect. The issue with the house wasn't that it was condemned due to a hole in the roof and water damage and squatters. As it turns out, the hole in the roof couldn't be fixed because you couldn't get permits for it because the city records and the survey did not match each other. In order to fix this, I would have to transfer the property, hire attorneys, and get a replat. After a year of thinking the finish line to actually get started on this project was in sight, I eventually sold it at a major loss. And it is something I do not regret at all. It was one of the best decisions I ever made, was to sell that property. The only thing I regret is not seeing the signs to sell it earlier. I kick myself for not seeing all the smaller issues as a sign of a larger one. As a result, it cost me about 18 months of near the constant frustration, a lot of money just for the surveys, etc., and getting it secured, monthly high interest loan payments, only to sell it at a loss. Why did I not see the warning signs? I don't know if I could have really caught them before I got to that stage, but I definitely have the feeling that I had counted my chickens before they had hatched. This deal had a potential very large profit for when it was all fully renovated and built an addition onto it. So I sold the property, and that house has since been torn down by the city. So if you learned anything or just kind of feel sorry for me, please like, share, comment, or subscribe. This is Investing in Georgia. My name is Alan. Thanks.